Hi, my name is Shanda Rule. I'm a singer, storyteller, joy spreader, and host of the Courageous Voice podcast. The Courageous Voice podcast gathers and shares stories from artistic folks around the world and their journeys through fear, courageousness, and creativity. Join us and get inspired with me as we chat about learning to befriend and walk with and past our fears to share our voices courageously with the world. Hello and welcome to the Courageous Voice podcast. My name is Shanda Rule, and I am so excited to be here with you once more. And I'm even more excited to introduce my guest today, my buddy, my friend, my artistic partner, Ike Sturm. Welcome, Ike Sturm.
Thank you, Shanda. Excited to be here.
So Ike Sturm is a critically acclaimed bassist, composer. He's a band leader. He is a father, a visionary, a world traveler, a cross-country ski racer. Did I get that right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. I got to change the order. I really like that. That should be first.
You like it? Cross-country ski racer? Yes. And just an all-around wonderful person. Actually, when I was thinking about you and what I wanted to chat with you about, one thing that kept coming back to my mind was community builder. I'll say creative community builder, because one thread that I've noticed just throughout your music making and your leading is your gift at bringing people together through music.
I remember one of the first times you and I were talking about community. This is probably 10 years ago. And you really quickly you said, Ike, we don't build community, you welcome community. And I've told so many people that, and I've thought about that so many times because it sounds like a minor detail in some way, but it's really helped me to think about why we do that or how we do that or how we receive that. And it was one of those wonderful little Shanda gifts and reframings that I just keep with me. I love hearing you say that about the community building because it is so close to my heart. And I think part of why it brings me joy to hear that is because it feels really attached to me or to my calling or my dreams. And so it comes very easily, actually. It's one of those things I saw both my parents doing a lot of. And so it's one of those things that you just kind of do without thinking about it. It's just fun. It brings me a lot of joy to see people meeting each other and getting together. So my work, I feel like, becomes the things around that. What makes that possible? What facilitates the ways in which we can gather people, the ways we can welcome people. So that's where the work is for me. The other part is just being joyful. That's kind of how it hits me.
Ike and I met at St. Peter's while he was the music director for the jazz services there. And you were doing a lot. I mean, you had professional musicians coming together, and then you built a community of musicians of all different abilities. Even the type of music that you were creating was building community.
Actually, you brought back a memory of being in college towards the end of my time in school. I was in a music ed class where we were arranging pieces, and it was like a folk tune, and I arranged it, and I just had so much fun putting it together. It was a very simple tune, and I noticed that by having a single note, almost like chant in a melody, beneath it you can play just about any chord, really any of the 12 notes below any melody note give multiple possibilities for harmonization underneath. And so I often will just search every single one of them and look through all the different possibilities. And they're like characters in a story, and it just free frames everything above it. And I just love that universe, that feeling of being in the music. My dad was an amazing arranger and teacher. And so I would hear the music that he was creating, and it was inspiring to me. And so as I've looked back at that, I think that sort of laid the groundwork. I had no idea what I was doing, and I had no idea where it was going. My track or path was similar to what my dad was doing, like a jazz director at a college and a teacher. I was doing music ed. And right when I got out of school, I had a year of kind of desolation of like not quite knowing where I was going. And then I found out about this job at St. Peter's and was able to get this job, which was great timing and a real gift. So But I think what happened was I was able to bring the gifts of my jazz training and my writing, which really was just beginning. I still feel is just beginning, actually. But I was able to take that into what we were doing at St. Peter's. And my job, the expectation when I started was that I would create music each week. And that came in many forms, sometimes original music, sometimes, things based on psalms, sometimes hymns, and everything in between. And it was just such a natural space and kind of playground to connect people and to try all this music out and make people feel at ease and help them get to the next level of their own expression and creativity. So it's just been fun to see that happen, and now experience, like, here we are in a new time. And even though I've moved into a new space of creating welcoming community in some of these new places and creating music with you, which has honestly been my favorite stuff I've ever done in my whole life. So
Oh my
it's
God. This is a humongous honor to hear that. Oh my gosh.
I think
Oh
you
my
can feel
gosh.
it actually with what has been created and what is being created. It's just
Oh man. Yeah, yeah.
yeah.
You've said a lot there. And there's a few things that you didn't mention. I want to talk about this journey. You're talking about this time you moved to New York, you have this year of, oh my God, what's happening? And then you're stepping into this job. And what you didn't mention is that this job was perfect for you, and yet it was very different than what was going on before. So I'm wondering if you could just talk about these transitions, because these are not easy things. And this is where courageousness comes into play, of stepping into these new roles or being open to doing something new and fully bringing yourself to it. I don't know if you remember that time very well.
Actually, the first time I came into St. Peter's, I just had this kind of sense of, I don't think this is actually where I'm supposed to be. And it was really interesting because you're asking me where I was courageous, and I'm answering the other side of that. I did feel some courage in the step towards applying for that position and kind of being vulnerable and putting myself out there. But then there was this other narrative that came to me, which was, I really needed something to fill the void. And this gave me some really clear information and a structure to step into. That space nourished me so much. And there really was a beautiful calling and structure and ministry in that space that I grew into and that grew with me. And now that I've been able to step into a new space, I'm realizing that I'm answering some questions and stepping into some courage that I wanted to step into like 20 years ago or 18 years ago, whatever it was. And so I'm finally getting to experience some of the things that I was just getting a taste of, like really being a musician, like really being a little more vulnerable around. I don't quite know what's coming, but I am going to continue stepping into these unknown and inspiring places.
Yeah. I love that you shared that, because I think that it gives more dynamic to the word courage and what we think of courage, or what courageousness is, because many people can feel you with that. Do you think you would have been ready to step into what you're doing now had you not had these years there?
No, and I have goosebumps thinking about it, because what I notice, my interpretation or understanding of this whole journey so far has been that even though I felt like maybe I didn't step into courage in the way that I was being called at that time, I see this river, as you might put it, or this plan of this path and this kind of structure that has held me the entire time and that has still made something really beautiful even in the detour. There's been so much training, so much schooling, like on the deepest level of, like, when we're talking about community, I mean, I really saw that space there as such a playground where we could meet people and try things. I was just talking with our friend about it like an hour ago, and how we were noticing that in that time we were able to try so many things and connect to so many people. And now this season in both of our lives has been about being more focused, because we've really found our communities and our people who we really truly resonate with. And we've done a lot of that experimentation, and we'll continue to do it and stay open. But my job and my calling now is to really dig into what we're harvesting and what we're experiencing. So it's a different season, and I feel like each of those had its own place that was really a gift.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you just decide to take a step with not knowing what was happening? What was this process like?
Yeah, that's where I'm connecting with the courageous voice here because for me, moving from one very clear, very established, very predictable, very safe space into like the image I had was jumping out of an airplane is how it felt to me.
Okay.
And so I had to prepare for that. I had to like, is my suit on here? You know, am I stretched? Am I flexible enough to handle the whole thing?
Mm-hmm.
And so I started to really think about what has been built, where am I going? And so I took about a year to really think about that and think about trying to discern because I knew this was such a unique situation that I was in that it was like once I step into a new space, that's really it. It's not
Mm-hmm.
like, oh, I'll go teach at another school or I'll go do this. It's like a very unique situation that I was very conscious of letting go of. And so, yeah, I just started to see all these other openings coming up and possibilities. And I just stepped into all of those and just kind of got my toe wet. And I was doing therapy in the time too, to just really discern what are the things that I'm bringing into this situation versus the external feedback and the reality that was around me. And I really discovered where I need to be is in a place that feels like it's on a creative edge.
Mm.
And in order for me to feel alive and really feel fulfilled and for my music to really have that feeling of being alive, I need to be in that space. And so I think it really required me to take that risk of stepping
Mm-hmm.
out into the current, you know?
So you said yes, you tried out a lot of different things. Were there any other steps as far as how you were getting clear with yourself? Or I also think that a lot of times when we start to get these openings, there's some sort of clearing that's happening, whether it's through personal work, through journaling, or talking to friends. Do you feel comfortable sharing any of those steps with
Yes,
us?
absolutely. So I think I actually lean maybe too much at times on my friends and my really close knit community that I have. And I don't actually think it's too much. I can feel it from my friends that they can handle it and that I can handle whatever they need to throw my way. I think it makes it all stronger. So I think for me, that network was like absolutely critical. I needed to get mirrored and I needed to try scenarios and to sort of push into these different possibilities and bounce things off of people. And I had more than once I felt like, wow, am I leaning too much? And I was always met with kindness and patience with people just saying like, hey, I care about you and I think you're going to do fine. Trust yourself and all those kinds of encouraging things that I think we all really need on a deep level, like all the way through our lives,
Mm-hmm.
whether it be,
Mm-hmm.
a caregiver when we're young or friends as we get older or children as we get old, whatever it is, it's like, you really need that guidance. And so I think I relied on that a ton. Musically too, I noticed when I look back at the music, I started writing lyrics to songs and I started writing poetry and some things that I told myself my whole life that I couldn't do.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to let go of the judgmental voice that said, oh, this isn't as good as E.E. Cummings or something. And it's like, well, right, it's not, but that's okay. It's like, this is where I'm at in this moment. And the goal is not to write the greatest thing that's ever been created, which maybe my goal was that for a while, but now it's like a more realistic present goal of like, let me just create something that is right now that is helping me get to the next level. Because if I don't do
Mm.
that, I'm never going to move. I'm never going to evolve.
Mm. And how did that shift your creative process?
Yeah, I can feel it in my body right now. It felt like things just started to flow. Things started to really open up, and the music changed, the text changed. So there are a lot of like cues or clues in that as to, I mean, it's much, I think, akin to a journal of like giving you a lot of information about what your process is or where your place is in a given time. So when I look back at that, it kind of makes me smile. I'm like, okay, I was feeling a lot right then, and it came out and it had a place to go, you know, which is so great.
Ah.
So
Oh
I'm
my
fascinated by that.
gosh. Yeah, let me tell you what I'm fascinated with. So, after you jumped out the airplane, you've just been flying ever since. Like soaring. I mean, these pieces that you're creating, it's insane in a beautiful way. So now you're working with Connect Faith, you have your Shed series, you have I don't know. Can I say your new projects or no? Or you have
Yeah,
secret
yeah.
yeah, so you have your heart project, you have oh my God, you went to Israel. You have River. Oh my God, we're gonna talk about River. What else? What else have you been doing in this? How many years has it been now?
About a year and a half,
Oh
actually.
my God,
So
are you serious?
yeah, so it's been packed.
Yeah, I feel
Yeah.
like you've packed in like at least 5 years into this year and a half. It is
I mean, our
insane.
time has had a weird feeling to it in the last few years with the pandemic, so I'm confused about it myself. But yeah, it's fun to take a step back and just sort of take stock and go, "Oh, wow, this has been a really fruitful, like wonderful time," you know? Yeah.
Fruitful. Yes, it has been. What I find interesting is that even though you are, as I said, a critically acclaimed musician, you keep adding on. So you mentioned that you started writing your own lyrics and writing poetry, but in the past few months, you've started singing also.
Yeah, I'm happy to talk to that point because I'm still scared out of my mind to do that. And I have these wonderful, encouraging people like this wonderful singer, Dave Edwards, this friend of mine who's someone I look up to a lot. And I have these people that have just basically said, hey, step into this. So this singer who I'd never met saw this video where I stepped out and I just sang as I was playing in my shed here. I was creating something just because for the sake of creating it, no purpose, no placement, no, nothing else. It had to come out,
Hmm.
but I was excited about it. I sang and I just tried to sing full voice. I tried to breathe in and create something that I knew wasn't perfect, but that represented the way that I was feeling and helped tease me into kind of a new place. And so sure enough, it was one of those weird resonant things where this woman reached out to me and said, hey, I saw you singing on this thing and I wonder if you'll come do this concert out in the Midwest with me and record these songs, and also I want you to sing on it too. I just started laughing because I'm so,
Mm.
I just lack so much confidence around that and I'm so freaked out about it. And so to have someone see that and then nourish that or encourage that was really helpful and really inspiring. And I guess it's just a cool example of one of my mentors and heroes is the great bassist Dave Holland, who played with Miles and so many great people. And I remember talking to him when I was creating my very first creative project many, many years ago. I went to Birdland and I handed him my very first record, like before it came out. And he just smiled and he said, Ike, when you give something to the universe will respond, And I
Mm.
love that. And I just taken that with me the entire time. Like, what a beautiful thing to tell someone when they're in that stage. And so I felt like there's something to that where I know that when I can get to play with people like you, Shanda, it's like, okay, why would I sing when I could ask you to do something? When it's like, well, there's a space for that too. Maybe I learned something or I expressed something different. And there's openness. There's like a place
Hmm.
for all of that, at a certain time.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah. And also, it's interesting when you're talking about putting something out there and you're getting something back, but you're also just making music because you love it and you have something to express. And I feel like, it's called like playing music, right? We forget this aspect of just creating because you are a creator.
Yeah, I love that idea of play. When I was a kid, my dad brought Bobby McFerrin in, and I remember just seeing him and hearing him, and just more than
Oh my
anything,
God.
just seeing how he acted actually. Like
Mm-hmm.
he's just playing like all the time. And we see that with a lot of musicians that we love, where it's a very childlike place where they're
Mm.
just playing all the time. And I feel that we kind of have that as we approach these projects. You know how when we started talking about the river piece, it's like we didn't know what it was.
Mm-hmm.
We had this time of just listening and playing and like here's this text and here's this sentiment and here's this memory and here's the story, and just
Mm-hmm.
like throwing paint on the wall, and then you would tell me, oh, I have this melody that goes with this text, but I'm not going to tell you what it is. And I'm like, what are you
Oh
doing, what are you
my
doing?
God, I'm so glad I didn't. Oh my God. Yeah, I mean, that whole process that you're talking about, it's interesting. I used to label that process as procrastination. And I did that for a long time until I realized it is a huge part of the process. And it's taken a while for me to realize that because I feel like it doesn't really fit what I read a process should be like. And so I love that you are open to that, because for me it's necessary, and now I know it. I'm like, okay, I know that I'm going to go through this process of idea, write something down, idea, waste 2 weeks researching the idea and then throw that away and then
Right.
right. But I don't know, I feel like I mean, at this point in my life, I'm starting to just respect my process, and it just is. And no, it's not going to be lauded as the best way to get things done. But,
Or maybe it will be
or
actually,
maybe it will
but
be.
it'll be your own method.
Yeah,
It'll make
yeah.
sense in reverse, in
Oh my
hindsight.
gosh. So, Ike and I have a project coming out soon called River, and it was amazing to be asked to join you in this process. So, there was a church in Denver that commissioned Ike and asked Ike to create music, and they wanted Mary Oliver poems. And Ike says, I want my friend Shanda to come. And I'm laughing because they're probably like, who is Shanda? Chandra? Who is this? This is like your E.E. Cummings. What? So, what possessed you to tell them that I had to join you? I'm so grateful because I love this.
Well, we have some track record with this, right? We worked on Wide and Free together, which was really
Yeah.
inspiring to me. And then you worked on For the Breath, that other piece, which is so
Hmm.
gorgeous. And so every time I do this, it's like a magic thing that ends up happening. The text emerges from you, and I see you going through this really interesting, organic listening process where you're finding what it is. And when you finally find what that is and you hand it over to me, all the music is already there. It's bizarre actually in each of those
Mm,
cases, Wide and Free and For the Breath, and then this entire river piece. I think it's actually something about the way that your text speaks to me. Actually, I enjoy working with a lot of different texts, but something magic has happened each time that I've encountered that stuff, where it's like the music is just all hidden right in plain sight within the text, and so it always just, it flies out. It's bizarre. It's like almost like improvised. It comes straight out. And so when they told me about this, I was like, I have to find a way to engineer this. And I was fortunate that they didn't have this like definite direction. They were kind of
mm.
open themselves. And I want to give credit my dear friend Adam Waite out in Denver. We had talked about doing my jazz mass together actually. He has this beautiful choir out at Montview Presbyterian in Denver. And instead of trying to redo that or do that something that had been done 10 or 15 years ago, they had the courage to step into something totally unknown and allow for all this stuff that you and I did together.
Mhm.
And I'm so grateful for that, because I feel like this whole new set of possibilities has emerged out of that. Like now you and I
Yeah.
are talking about what's next. That just happened and other people don't even know about it yet, but we got to experience this incredible communal thing. And so I'm really grateful to them for making that happen and open to where that's all going to lead. It's really
Yeah.
fascinating.
Yeah. I'm super excited about it, as well as Mesu Rule. Shout out to my mom. I can't keep any secrets from her, but I didn't show her the video.
That's impressive. She's
I
probably going to track
didn't.
me down.
Now she is. Now that it's, yeah.
I'll be
Uh,
I'll be talking with you.
hmm. Listen, I want to talk about dreams and vision. And the reason why I use the word visionary when I introduce you is because I feel like the vision for this last project was just insanely humongous. I don't know what the vision was in your head. Do you feel like you realized the vision, or did it end up being better than you imagined? Please tell us about this process. Just so you know what I mean, we're going from having someone commission a project where it's kind of nebulous to this final production in this beautiful studio in Connecticut where Ike has literally flown in people from around the world, put them up, fed them, engineered or welcomed the most sacred, beautiful environment so people could create and feel good. I mean, it was just incredible. So tell me about your dreaming of this, your vision, and how you were able to do this.
I'm thinking of our mutual friend, Debbie Bronkema, who's been a huge support to me. When you talk about dreaming and vision, she's really been a real guide for me in the last few years in this whole process of flying that you're talking about. She's been right at the source of that for me, someone who's listened and someone who's talked about her own experience and has really been just like ultimate encourager. And also she's so smart about thinking about what's possible and just encouraging you to step into that. So I feel like any of these places where I would get stuck or I would feel like, oh, I'm not sure quite how to do this, she'd be like, well, she has this way of like teasing out like, well, what is it that you're sensing? What is it that you're seeing? Think about that, write about that, and then come back next week and we'll talk about it, and that kind of coaching has been like really critical for me. And I think has really been healing in this time of transition for me. And but yeah, I think the vision, you recall the story for me, which I was telling my family about the other day, which was that when Misty and I were in college, we'd go to this house where Misty lived, and there was this upright piano, and I was actually playing what would eventually become a movement for the jazz mass. And I was playing these chords, like maybe 4 or 8 chords or something like that, this chord progression that I was really sensing and I really loved. And I could hear a lot of possibilities in that. And the woman who lived there actually, in all kindness and just curiosity, just said, like, no disrespect, but is there something wrong with Ike? He keeps playing the same chords over and over and over, like hours, and just like, and so I love this. Actually, I felt embarrassed, but I also laughed because I realized just it's like playing a tape recorder or a loop over and over where I'm just flashing all of these images and all of these textures and sounds and melodies and things over the top of it. And it's almost like wearing headphones where someone sees you dancing and they're like, that cat's out of their mind. Like, what's going on? And for me, I was playing all these possibilities. And so I could see all of these possibilities. And it was sort of a special place for me to be able to be in that dream state. And at the same time, I needed to go through some life experiences and some training to get from, this little cell or this little fantasy to a place where we were able to realize this whole thing. And I think your point earlier about going through all these experiences the last 15, 20 years, a lot has been built and a lot of possibilities have been opened in terms of like, how do you organize a festival? How do you get a bunch of people together and get them all put up at a hotel? It's like all these little details that you don't study in music school, but you actually need to be able to deal with if you're going to mount a really large project. And back to your question, I feel like when you gave me this text, and I think there, I see the whole network. I see everyone having a voice, everyone having a hand in this vision, like Adam saying, Ike, can you write for strings and choir and your band? And I'm like, absolutely, every day, and then you giving me this text. And then for me, when I would make these little demos of me singing these like half-baked little things, people would hear the things and go, oh, that's a nice little demo, and to me, I heard the whole thing. I could hear strings and choir and I could hear the lift. And I think for me, when we got to the studio and we really heard it with you and Michael Mayo singing and hearing all the strings and the choir, and a few stages where you'd hit that kind of launch and you feel the music expand, it was too much for me. I looked back at the video and I'm just crying in in this joyful moments. I was about to burst. It was just an unbelievable feeling. And it was like I literally had this feeling of an out-of-body experience where it was like I literally was not even a part of creating it. It was like I was just riding along in it, and with you and with everybody else. And it was just an absolute gift to see that all happen. And it's bizarre.
It was. I really can't wait. I can't wait to share it with the world. Yes. Oh my God, we didn't talk about Endless Field. Oh my God.
This goes back a while now. I guess, are we into maybe I got to look it up actually, maybe 6 years, something like that.
Really?
It's a while. Yeah. 2017 maybe is when our first album came out. Yeah. Wow. 6 years. Jesse and I, we noticed that we were playing a bunch of projects with lots of musicians in New York, and all these little boxes that we were in, wonderful boxes, but things that didn't feel like right here, right at the center of your being. And so we took some time to think about that and went up into the Catskills and took a couple days and just cleared the decks and went hiking, and we just played music 12 hours a day and would memorize each other's parts and things that we were writing. And it really opened some things up and started the ball rolling. And much like the other vision thing we talked about, lots of people have been part of that journey and process along the way, including our friend Fabian Almazan at the Biophilia record label. He helped us really connect with outdoor initiatives and wilderness types of things. And so now we did this record out in Utah that was with a solar battery and National Geographic videographers, and an incredible adventure that we had called Alive in the Wilderness. And literally today we're working on this project that will happen live in Alaska this summer. So we're starting to create what that will look like, and it's totally different. It's like getting sounds in the locations and writing in the locations and mix of electronic and acoustic music. And so we're having an absolute ball. My pal Jesse Lewis, he's keeping a lot of things brewing. I love it. So
Okay. So Endless Feel is a duo project between Ike and the guitarist Jesse Lewis, and they have been filming at beautiful locations around the world. And someone saw your work online last year and invited you to Alaska.
Jesse and I would kind of go through this process of just connecting as friends, and we'd go out. We love to hike or run, and we'd be outside. And so at first there's no thought involved. It's just play, right? Like you talked about, where we're just doing things that we love and that bring us health and joy and life. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh, what if we tried this? What if we tried playing our guitar up on the cliff or whatever it is? And one thing has led to another, and now looking back at it, it makes some kind of sense. But along the way, it's just playing, it's just trying things and connecting things, and it's been so much fun. So
Oh my God, I love this theme. So I do want to recap this for people that are taking notes and getting their life and education, such as moi. So this importance of play, this importance of community, this importance of building a community of support around yourself, and really just being open to what life is sharing with you and showing you. And this is beautiful, how the universe, how life, how God's spirit is meeting you every step of the way. So, oh my God, thank you so much for joining me today and sharing your story so willingly. Okay, tell us where we can listen to your music and where we can keep in touch with you.
I have a website, ikesturm.com, and you can get everything through there. Instagram and Facebook and things are connected to that, and albums and Bandcamp and iTunes and all the regular stuff. It's all there, Spotify. And if you look up Endless Field, you can see a lot of those videos on my website, on the homepage or on YouTube. And so you can actually see these songs in each of these beautiful locations where we recorded in the outdoors. So you can find me pretty easily, and hope to see you all very soon.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Shanda.
The Courageous Voice podcast is a collaboration between Connect.Faith and me, Shanda Rule. Music is by Ike Sturm and production by Jess Burchett. Thanks for listening.